By 40, your nitric oxide production is already down to about half of what it used to be. By 70, it's a quarter. But the good news is that you can restore it. And in this video, I'll show you 4 scientifically proven ways to do just that. Hey, I'm Hitch. I'm 76, but I'm in better shape than I was at 50. Longevity is my passion, and it's what I do all day, every day. Nitric oxide, or NO, is a signaling molecule that keeps your arteries flexible and controls everything from your blood pressure to sexual function. The problem is that production of NO goes into steep decline as you get older. In today's video, we'll look at what nitric oxide actually does, how your body makes it, and why production starts to fail as you grow older. Then I'll walk you through 4 proven protocols to bring it back online. Okay, so why is a molecule that rarely gets mentioned so damn crucial for longevity? Most people just assume that circulation kind of takes care of itself. The heart beats, the blood moves, no problem, right? But it all turns on the production of a gas molecule that's actually running the whole show, nitric oxide, or NO, one of the body's most essential functions delegated to a molecule with a half-life of a shooting star. Nitric oxide is so important that in 1992, Science magazine dubbed it the molecule of the year. After that, in any discussion about health or longevity, people started calling it the molecule of youth. No shit. NO works as a signaling molecule. Whether a vessel needs to relax or constrict, it's nitric oxide that delivers the signal. That's what keeps your blood pressure steady and your circulation responsive from one second to the next. Inside the arteries, nitric oxide that's produced in the inner layer, the endothelium, diffuses into the surrounding smooth muscle tissue. There, it switches on an enzyme that makes a compound called cyclic GMP, which tells the muscle fibers to relax. The arteries widen, pressure drops, and oxygen delivery improves. This is the same chemistry that also drives erections. It's the same cyclic GMP signal that relaxes penile arteries so that blood can fill the penis. When that signal weakens, blood flow falters, causing erectile dysfunction. That's an early warning system that tends to get your attention. Nitric oxide can also impact your stamina. Getting winded too early or noticing less endurance is often an early sign that nitric oxide output has dropped. When levels are healthy, arteries widen fast during activity, capillaries open up, and oxygen gets delivered where it's needed, whether it's in the muscles when you're exercising or the brain when you're trying to focus. Nitric oxide also keeps your arteries young. It stops platelets from clumping, limits inflammation, and keeps the vessel walls elastic instead of stiff. When this signal fades, arteries harden, blood pressure creeps up, and recovery slows down. Even mitochondria, the energy factories inside your cells, depend on small local pulses of nitric oxide. It fine-tunes how efficiently nutrients and oxygen are converted into energy. NO is also important for longevity. It helps regulate stem cells and protects telomeres. When nitric oxide production starts to falter, everything else starts to slow down as well. And restoring it is one of the most powerful ways to reverse that slowdown. Stick around, and I'll show you how to do just that. But first, we need to understand how nitric oxide is produced, where it actually comes from. The body has 2 main systems for creating it: the arginine-enos pathway, which is enzyme-based, and the nitrate-nitrite pathway, which is diet-based. All right, let's start with the arginine-enos pathway. This pathway works inside endothelial cells, a layer that's just 1 cell thick and that lines every blood vessel. These cells use an enzyme called enos, short for endothelial nitric oxide synthase, to turn an amino acid called L-arginine into nitric oxide. This reaction requires oxygen, but it also needs a few helpers called cofactors. These include a molecule called BH4, another called NADPH, plus magnesium and vitamin C to keep the whole setup stable. Now, if any of these go missing, the enzyme uncouples and starts making free radicals instead of nitric oxide. That's the point where circulation quietly starts to fail. Now, this enzyme, enos, switches on when the blood moves across blood vessel walls, a mechanical trigger known as shear stress. More movement means more friction. Calcium channels open up, enos activates, and nitric oxide is released. It spreads into the muscle layer, raises cyclic GMP, and the artery relaxes. But this pathway is sensitive. Aging, nutrient loss, and oxidative stress can all damage the enos pathway or its cofactors. Hormonal decline also plays a role. Less testosterone or estrogen means weaker enos activation. And the less you move, the less shear stress you create. If you go through most of the day being inactive or you don't move much, the enzyme goes through most of the day without even being activated. Over time, nitric oxide output drops, blood pressure rises, recovery slows down, and performance takes a big hit. That's when the bottom leans in on its backup plan, the nitrite pathway. Now, this one doesn't depend on enzymes or oxygen. It starts with what you eat. Oral bacteria found in saliva convert dietary nitrates from foods like leafy greens, beets, and celery into nitrites. In the stomach, gastric acid and enzymes convert those nitrites into nitric oxide. However, there are catches. Antiseptic mouthwash wipes out the bacteria that drive this conversion. Low stomach acid stops the reaction midway. And a low nitrate diet means that the system has nothing to work with. When it's working, this second pathway keeps nitric oxide production up and running under conditions such as stress, low oxygen, or even just plain old aging. It restores nitric oxide production when enzymes can't. The key is that it's slower but steadier, more of a background signal that maintains baseline circulation. So, two systems, one fast and enzyme driven, one slow and diet driven. The first powers instant responses. The second keeps the lights on when the first starts to fail. Together, they keep nitric oxide production levels high until they don't. So, before we take a look at how to restore nitric oxide production, we need to examine why it goes into decline in the first place. And this usually happens as we age. These systems work pretty well when you're young, but as you age, they start to break down. Nitric oxide levels peak in early adulthood, then decline decade by decade. By around 40, production is dropped by half. By 70, you're down to a quarter of what you once made. That loss isn't just a side effect of aging, it's one of the things driving it. The arginine-enos pathway is the first to slow down. The endothelial cells that produce nitric oxide start breaking down from constant oxidative stress and inflammation. Their main enzyme, enos, loses efficiency and sometimes even flips roles. It can start producing free radicals instead of nitric oxide. The result is the same every time. Arteries stiffen, blood pressure climbs, and recovery slows down. Now, several factors drive this decline. High blood sugar glycates the enos system, binding it to sugar molecules and locking it in an inactive form. This same glycation, along with collagen cross-linking and calcium deposits, makes arteries less elastic. Chronic inflammation, pollution, and smoking can damage the endothelium. Poor sleep and ongoing stress raise cortisol, which keeps the body in a vasoconstricted state. We're talking choked off blood vessels and low nitric oxide production. The loss of cofactors makes the problem worse. Enos depends on BH4, NADPH, magnesium, and vitamin C. With age, the levels of those cofactors drop and the enzyme uncouples. Instead of making nitric oxide, it leaks superoxide, a reactive molecule that causes even more oxidative stress. That single shift accelerates nearly every symptom of vascular aging. Physical inactivity can also shut down the enos pathway. When you sit too long, blood flow slows down and shear stress disappears. After about 90 minutes of sitting, blood flow through the legs can drop by half, and so does nitric oxide output. The longer the enzyme stays idle, the weaker it gets. over time, endothelial cells stop responding and arteries lose their flexibility. The good news is that the second system, the nitrite pathway, stays functional as you age. As the enzyme system falters, the other pathway can still pick up the slack, as long as you don't block it with mouthwash, antacids, or a nitrate-poor diet. The decline of nitric oxide production is not permanent. With the right inputs, both nitric oxide systems can return to full function. All right, now the good stuff. Let's talk about some different protocols that you can utilize right now to restore nitric oxide production back up to where it's supposed to be. There's 4 scientifically proven ways to accomplish that. And first up is a brand new dietary supplement from Do Not Age. It's called Nitralis, and it's designed to boost nitric oxide levels by activating the nitrite pathway. That's the one that stays functional even as the arginine-enos pathway begins to slow down with age. Do Not Age ran a 30-day placebo-controlled human study on Nitralis. 85 adults took part. After a month, the Nitralis group showed an average 226% increase in salivary nitric oxide levels compared to virtually no change in the placebo group. In short, Nitralis more than doubled nitric oxide availability in just 30 days. That effect comes from how the ingredients work together, and there's 3 of them. The first ingredient is fermented beets, the main source of dietary nitrates in Nitralis. Fermentation increases how much nitrate you can absorb and lowers the natural sugar content found in raw beet powder. It also starts converting some nitrates into nitrites. That fuels the oral salivary nitrate cycle, giving you a steady stream of nitric oxide, even when oxygen levels are low or the enzyme pathway is sluggish. The second ingredient is magnesium ascorbate, a combination of magnesium and vitamin C. We've already talked about both of these being nitric oxide cofactors. Magnesium supports the enzymes that regulate nitric oxide production, while vitamin C prevents nitric oxide from being destroyed by oxidation. Together, they both help recycle BH4. This is the cofactor that keeps the enos enzyme stable and efficient whenever it's active. The result is more nitric oxide preserved and less oxidative waste. The third ingredient is epimedium, or horny goatweed extract. Epimedium contains a carrion, a mild PDE5 inhibitor that slows the breakdown of cyclic GMP, the molecule that tells arteries to relax once nitric oxide is released. The result is a stronger, longer-lasting signal. Together, these ingredients do 3 things. Fermented beets produce more nitric oxide, magnesium ascorbate stabilizes it, and epimedium helps the effect to last longer. Do Not Age sent me a trial tub of Nitralis. I tested it for 30 days, and I can tell you, this stuff works. My blood pressure is down, and my morning wood is, well, it's up. But for now, the only way to get Nitralis is in a bundle. Those bundles go on sale November 10th, when Do Not Age starts its Black Friday event, the only sale they run all year long. If you want early access to the Black Friday sale, there's a link to the VIP waitlist in the description below. Joining the waitlist gets you a free gift worth $150. I've also included my discount code for Do Not Age. It takes another 10% off. Just remember the code, and when the sale goes live, enter it at checkout to take another 10% off of your bundle. Okay, now that we've covered how to restore nitric oxide chemically, let's look at how to turn the system back on mechanically. This one takes about 4 minutes, and it doesn't cost you anything. It's called the nitric oxide dump. It's a short bodyweight routine developed by Dr. Zach Bush expressly to raise nitric oxide production. The principle is simple. Fast, repetitive movements drive blood through large muscle groups. That flow creates the friction, the shear stress, along the walls of your blood vessels. Shear stress is the cue that tells endothelial cells to release nitric oxide. Every time you move, you're activating the enos pathway directly. Each round takes about 90 seconds. The standard sequence is squats, arm swings, non-jumping jumping jacks, and overhead presses. Start with 10 each and work your way up to 20. You only need to do about 2 to 3 rounds per session. Try to do it about 3 times a day, spacing sessions at least 2 hours apart. That's so that your nitric oxide levels have the time they need to rebuild between dumps. That rebuilding is the whole point. The nitric oxide dump trains the enos pathway to make nitric oxide again. Each round releases what's been stored. Then levels climb back up during recovery. Repeating that cycle, dump, rebuild, dump, reactivates the enzyme system that's gone quiet from aging or inactivity. Over time, the machinery that produces nitric oxide becomes stronger and more responsive. Now, if you already do regular workouts, add the nitric oxide dump at the end, not before. It helps restore circulation and speeds recovery. Usually, you'll feel a slight tingling in your body within a minute or two. That's the nitric oxide being released into the bloodstream. Now, if you want a clear visual guide, I did a separate video on the nitric oxide dump a few years ago that'll walk you through the routine. I'll put the link to that in the description. There's also another link to a video that I did explaining exactly how the nitric oxide dump can improve erectile dysfunction symptoms. When combined with Nitralis, the effect is synergistic. It multiplies. Nitralis triggers the nitrate-nitrite pathway, while the nitric oxide dump activates the arginine-enos pathway. Because these are separate pathways, reactivating both of them produces more NO than ever. All right, we've covered how to restore nitric oxide chemically and mechanically. The third lever is lifestyle, how you live day to day. Supplements and exercise work best when the environment that they operate in is stable. That means protecting the systems that make nitric oxide in the first place. Let's start with the mouth. I know, right? But oral bacteria convert dietary nitrates into nitrites, the first step in the nitrate-nitrite pathway. Antiseptic mouthwash kills those bacteria for up to a full day, shutting that pathway down. 2/3 of adults use some sort of antiseptic mouthwash, and 2/3 of seniors have high blood pressure. Probably not a coincidence. Next, breathing through the nose makes a difference. The nasal passages produce some of the highest nitric oxide levels in the body. That nitric oxide mixes with the air that you inhale and it reaches the lungs. There, it helps to open up blood vessels, improves oxygen uptake, and supports healthy blood pressure. Finally, humming while you exhale can raise nitric oxide levels even further. Now, let's talk about what you eat. We've already talked about eating nitrate-rich foods and the role of magnesium and vitamin C. But potassium and plant polyphenols also play a role. They support nitric oxide by protecting the endothelium and activating enos. A diet built around colorful plants, moderate protein, and healthy fats maintains vascular flexibility. Now, I've already mentioned gut acid, but I'd like to circle back. Having low levels of stomach acid can block the conversion of nitrites into nitric oxide. It also reduces absorption of nutrients that support it, like magnesium and vitamin C. That's why chronic use of antacids or acid blockers like Prilosec or Nexium can reduce nitric oxide levels. And finally, there's movement. Even if you train daily, long hours of sitting can still suppress nitric oxide production. Standing, walking, or stretching for 2 or 3 minutes every hour kickstarts the process and keeps the nitric oxide machinery active. Now, there's one last protocol I want to talk about to restore nitric oxide production, and it's a little out of the box. I've never heard of this mentioned when talking about nitric oxide, but it may be one of the most powerful protocols available. It works at the cellular level, repairing the endothelium itself. I'm talking about peptides, small chains of amino acids that signal the endothelial cells to begin healing. And the peptide that does that best is BPC-157, short for body protection compound. It directly upregulates the enos pathway inside endothelial cells, promotes new capillary growth, and helps repair blood vessel linings. The result is a stronger nitric oxide signaling, better blood flow, and faster recovery in tissues that have been oxygen deprived or ischemic. In animal studies, it normalized blood pressure and improved healing in ischemic tissues. If there's a single peptide that can truly restore the enos pathway and nitric oxide production, this is it. Now, there's some other peptides that can have a similar effect. There's TB500 or thymosin beta 4. It stimulates angiogenesis, the formation of new blood vessels, and helps endothelial cells migrate to repair damaged areas. By improving microcirculation, it raises the shear stress that activates enos, which means that more nitric oxide is released naturally. There's also GHK-Cu, a copper tripeptide that turns on the genes that produce enos, antioxidant enzymes, and collagen production in vessel walls. It lowers oxidative stress and keeps arteries flexible. Now, there's some other peptides that can play supporting roles. Epithalon improves mitochondrial efficiency and antioxidant balance. DSIP lowers sympathetic nervous system activity and cortisol, helping maintain resting vasodilation. CJC1295 and the growth hormone releasing peptides raise growth hormone and IGF-1 levels, which both promote endothelial repairing and nitric oxide signaling. When peptides are used together with other methods that we've discussed here, you've got a complete system for restoring nitric oxide production: chemical, mechanical, behavioral, and cellular. Now, if you'd like to learn more about peptides, I'm running a program called Primer on Peptides inside of the Longevity Alliance, my free school.com community. It's an 8-week group coaching program, and it takes a deep dive into everything you ever wanted to know about peptides. I'll put the link in the description below. Just follow the link, join the free community, go to the Classrooms tab, and then click on the Primer on Peptides thumbnail to register. Everything your body does depends on nitric oxide. It's the signal that keeps the arteries flexible, blood pressure low, and in some cases, erectile dysfunction at bay. But like most systems that work just fine, we ignore it until it doesn't. And sometimes we still ignore it because we just don't realize that it's not working. The good news is that the decline in nitric oxide production is not permanent. With the right strategy, you can restore it, get it back to being fully functional. And that's what longevity really is, right? Restoring as much functionality as we can. You can optimize it chemically with Nitralis, mechanically with a nitric oxide dump, behaviorally through lifestyle adjustments, and biologically with peptides that repair the endothelium itself. 4 levers, 1 goal: repair the machinery that makes nitric oxide and get it working again. It's an elegant system, at least when it's working. The problem is, we never read the manual. All right, that's it for me. I'm out of here. If you want to check out Nitralis, just click on the link right down here. Catch you guys next time.